Hey people, week 2 of Shadowlands is upon us, and with this I would like to talk about 6 things that you should probably prioritize in your gameplay every single week. So obviously this is a week 2 list, which means that there are probably things that will shift as they release Castle Lathria and as they release Mythic Plus, but most of those things, especially the first few items from the list, are definitely going to be things that you should prioritize on a day-to-day basis. So let's just get started. Before we do though, please remember to follow, subscribe, leave me a comment if you do enjoy the videos. You can also leave me a like. So guys, you might have guessed it, as the first item on the agenda is going to be Torghast. And this is specifically because week 2 is going to mean, for most people anyway, that they will be able to craft their first legendary items. You require 1250 soul ash to do this. From the first week, if you did all 3 layers in both of the Torghast dungeons, you have already had around 810 soul ash. You can earn, I think, 710 this week as well, because there is a quest which gives you 100, and then there is also obviously the layers that will give you additional soul ash as well. And you probably, if you did any Torghast last week, you probably realize that it is quite a difficult endeavor overall, because those monsters, those bosses over there are relatively difficult. However, it is an utmost priority because the legendary items, which you craft, as I said, for 1250 soul ash, are just going to give you a significant boost of power. Those are level 190 items. Overall, you can pick the slot that they go into, obviously depending on the enchantment or on the power that you choose. You obviously need to pick up the power as well, but this means that, you know, this week you're just going to see an incredibly large burst of power if you do manage to complete those layers, and if you manage to get 1250 soul ash total. So this should probably be your very first priority. I do have as well a very small tip for those who are struggling, because I know lots of people have been actually having trouble with Torghast overall. My tip is go tank. If you have a tank spec on your class, I am absolutely sure that the demon hunters can do this. I did see druids doing this as well, and I'm absolutely certain, you know, first-hand information, blood DK, those classes are just remarkably good at Torghast solo. You can obviously tag along with a group, but this obviously kind of comes with certain difficulties. Since, you know, Torghast just scales insanely hard with the number of players, which probably means that it is going to be way harder for you to complete it with a group than it is going to be if you go and complete it alone. So I'm going to show you my specs. Just very quickly, you can just pause the video and have a look. So this is what I'm running here on my blood decay. Obviously, you can probably optimize this, you know, go for consumption here instead of hemostasis. And you probably should be taking the Sanguination Weapon enchantment. And for the Death Knight, this means you can just basically, even I did this like at 155 item power. This is really nothing that you should worry about in terms of the difficulty. So I definitely recommend you guys to give this one a little shot at least. Take your tank to the Torghast, go alone, don't go with people. This is just going to make things really hard. Unless you have no other choice. If you play a healer, I think that it might be your really only choice to just go with a team, or, you know, try to struggle through that. So generally speaking, I would say Torghast is going to be definitely like your #1 priority. And going from here, we'll talk about the next few ones as well. So stay tuned. Guys, priority number 2 is going to be your Renown system, and this is basically 2 quests and a campaign chapter that you have to do every single week. And this basically encompasses you just doing some very simple things. First of all, you have to go to the mall, collect some souls. This is basically like, you know, 2-3 minutes. You get 1 Renown progress just for free like that. The second bit is going to be a bit more complicated. You have to gather 1,000 anima from, you know, the map overall. And there's a very neat trick here. As you can see, I'm in the Inn of Orbus. There's a quest that you can pick up from the innkeeper. You basically have to just go down the stairs here, and you'll see 2 NPCs over there. And those 2 NPCs will actually give you a quest. So they're basically like 2 quests there, which mean that you have to just go and kill 2 bosses, 2 dungeon bosses that you'll probably be doing anyway this week. And this actually gives you 350 animas. It's kind of a nice kickstart, and allows you to get like a decent amount of progress just by doing the content that you'll be doing anyway. As you can see, for me, this is Plagueful and Sanguine Depths. I just have to go there. There's also a decent chunk of reputation that is the quest reward for this. So I would overall say, you know, as you can see, 500 reputation plus 175 anima altogether, it's a decent chunk, right? It's a decent chunk of progress, which I would say is definitely going to work in your favor. I would say just do this. That's going to be a very, very decent bit of comfort for you, and then you won't feel so pressured to kind of keep doing that progression over there. So I would say those two things are really simple. I'm not really sure how the campaign chapter works for everybody, because we have different covenants, but I would wager it is not going to be too complicated either. And those are going to be the two first things. Let's go to number 3 on the list. So guys, tip number 3 is very straightforward. We talked about Torghast. We said that, legendaries are going to be available now. So the step number 3 is getting the legendary that you want. You probably should have your eyes on something, right? You can go to the guides on Wowhead. If you are not sure, you can just kind of look at the diary of all the legendaries available. The adventure guide it is. You just go here, you click over, you go home, powers. Here you can get like all your legendary powers listed. You can see where they come from. So if you hover over those icons, they will literally tell you where you can get your power from. You can just go and craft it. Seriously, this is as simple as that. The problem, however, is that you need to acquire those items first. And in order to do this, you actually need to kind of go to these specific bits of content. Mind you, some of them are not going to be available readily, since, they are basically coming from, for instance, the Spirit Walker's title totem. It is a drop from a raid boss, which means, obviously, that it will take you a little bit to farm that bit. However, I feel like the most default legendary powers come from Torghast. Level 3 Torghast will award you probably one of the strongest items for your class. That's what happened for me anyway for the shaman. If you're not in luck, you might have to farm this. Obviously, if as far as the dungeon powers go, you can farm the normal dungeons, you can farm those powers in heroics as well. So it is not that it's impossible to get those this week. You should just kind of start trying hard. As I said, priority number 3. Go for it, guys. This is going to be a huge boost of power, I believe, for every single character in the game. So, you should just definitely try focusing on this bit. It will make your life easier, to make your damage higher, and it will make your character a bit more unique, right? So definitely go for this straight away. And this actually takes us to point number 4. Guys, point number 4 is very straightforward too. Just do your Mythic Zeros, right? You should probably got your Mythic Zero completion last week, so 8 out of 8. And you should be aiming for this week as well. This is because we're preparing for Castle Nathria. And this actually means that your character should be as powerful as humanly possible before Castle Nathria drops. And this is going to be slightly tricky for people who play DPS, I think. If your item power is around 150, 160, it might be relatively difficult for you to kind of climb up to this power level desired by, by the raids, which should be around 180. This should mean that, getting into those groups is going to be relatively harder. So my tip number 1 is learn to play your off-spec, learn to heal, or learn to tank if you can do this with your class. Obviously, there are some classes such as, hunters, mages, warlocks, and so on, that are not able to kind of fulfill those utility duties, so tanks and healers are not really available to those classes. However, like if you are able to do it, if you just tank those Mythic Zero dungeons, this is not really hard with, good gear, or if you heal those, again, getting, doing healing at, 160, 170 item power is relatively straightforward. If you already have some decent gear, getting into that role is just going to be remarkably easy. A tank with 150 item power can handle Mythic Zero. I know it because my friend just literally did this last week. We went through all the 8 Mythics. No real hiccups there. So if you really want to kind of gear up fast, I think that's the smoothest way you can do it in. Just go and do your utility. So just switch your spec, learn to play it like, run a heroic or 2, and just get that gear by running as a tank. If you get to around 170 item level, I think it's going to be very straightforward for a DPS. You can just switch the DPS and just kind of run those dungeons as a DPS, because with high item power, every single party will just want you to be on board with them. So if you do get decent, if you do get the decent item level, you can just start joining parties. They'll definitely want you. Just a small tip here again, just make sure that you join people who speak your language. I had this happen a lot actually, where, actually Mythic Zero can be quite tricky, even week 2 where people got their bearings. And this actually means that you know, you might actually want to communicate with people. Literally, you just want to discuss your tactics. You might kind of see what adjustments you can make and so on and so forth. And in order to do so, you need to be able to speak the same language. So if you don't speak Russian, I would strongly advise joining Russian parties. If you don't speak Spanish, you know, same deal. It's like those. I feel like there are certain nationalities that are not really too welcoming for foreigners, and you should just kind of try to avoid it, because this just causes a lot of stressful situations. You might not be able to complete your dungeons, and then, you know, rerunning, you know, a dungeon is halfway done is not a pleasant thing, because you just don't get that much loot potentially. So I would say that's definitely a priority for you as well. Just make sure that you learn to play your off spec that can do those perform those utility roles, and just get your gear quickly, because this will actually propel you up to raids and Mythic 0. And I'm telling you right now, if you go to Mythic dungeons, Mythic Plus dungeons, if you go into week 3 without decent gear and you try to find a Mythic Plus group as a DPS without, you know, item level 175 or so, you probably will have trouble, right? So I would say just try to get as good gear as humanly possible this week, because next week it might just be too late, because people will just not really welcome you anymore, and there will probably be way fewer groups running Mythic 0 and way more groups running Mythic Plus. So yeah, I would say just get ready for that. Mythic 0s, you know, 8 of them right now, and then you can obviously just transition into running Mythic Plus. Later, it is going to be a very decent option for gearing up your characters. As you know, as kind of time passes by. By the way, Mythic is going to be way harder. So probably over the week 3, 4, and 5, you'll still probably be willing to do Mythic 0 just to gear up your character even further, get those more optimal items, because Mythic Plus is going to drop, as far as I know, only 1 item for the entire group. So, you know, 1 in 5 Mythic Plus dungeons, you'll actually get an item that interests you. So I would definitely say you should, you know, brace yourself for a lot of difficulties there, and maybe just get used to running Mythic 0 as a routine, right? So yeah, get used to your role, get comfortable, learn those mechanics in depth, and be ready, because the Mythic Plus dungeons are going to be extremely difficult by the looks of things, right? Obviously, legendary powers will help you a lot, but I suspect that it will still be quite a difficult journey overall. Guys, so piece of advice number 5 is actually making money. Legendary crafting requires quite a lot. Also, getting some items from the market, from the auction house, since you can actually trade the epic quality loot, is going to be quite demanding in terms of cash. And you can obviously earn money in several ways. I would say that the most efficient one for me has been skinning so far. I got to 250, which means you can actually drop, you know, the blue leathers from the monsters. Let's see if we can get like a lot from this stack. So the thing is, you kind of find a decent spot at which, you know, a lot of monsters spawn that you can skin. I think that the most popular ones are obviously going to be the Bastion monsters, since they're just, you know, they spawn in very high quantities around the starter area here. And the other option is going to be the Gorm, so that's the area where I do usually go skinning. And obviously the Gorms over here in Ardenweald and over here as well, I think, they are going to provide you with a very substantial number of monsters you can kill and skin. So the trick here is usually just kind of get a class that can pull a lot of monsters simultaneously, pull those monsters in, clean them up. You know, tank specs do that very well, you know, those high AoE specs do that very well, skin everything and just move on. And I'm telling you guys, I'm making, you know, by playing in a very chill way, I think I make around 25,000-30,000 gold per hour by skinning monsters alone. This is mostly because the heavy callous hides sell for a metric shitload of money. It's like around 1,000 gold each. And you can get like a lot of them, you know, probably get like a single one or two for every single of those larger pools. And this is just a very nice method of making money. Obviously, as I said, there are probably like more specialized videos that will guide you through the process of, you know, kind of getting the optimal income. But I would say, you know, skinning is a very decent casual starting point that anyone can do without much effort put into it. So I would say definitely give this one a shot. And yeah, ethereal meat, by the way, does sell for a decent chunk of gold as well. You drop a lot of those ethereal meats from monsters, so that might be another decent source of income overall. You know, everyone is crafting food right now, so, you know, they can get ready for Mythic Plus and for the raids. So I would say definitely just give this one a shot. It will pay dividends for sure. And as I said, you will need money. You will definitely need money in Shadowlands. I only have like 100,000 across my characters, 94k actually. You probably will want to earn significantly more than this, and in order to do this, you need to kind of have a decent money-making strategy. So that's it for this priority. Let's go to the final one. And the last bit is something I've been struggling with specifically myself, and it is, I think, a very important bit of advice anyway. So even though I haven't fulfilled this, I would definitely say you should try getting there yourselves. And this bit is actually finding a guild. It's not an easy thing to do because, you know, you have to find a guild that will work with your demands as a player. Obviously, you can just use a guild finder tool, just apply to multiple of those guilds. Probably you want to kind of get a dungeon/raiding guild that will allow you to, you know, use Shadowlands to their maximum potential if you do want to raid at all. As I said, find a nice community, because this means that you can kind of work with people that you like, rather than working with random people that you find in Raid Finder or in Dungeon Finder, right? That's definitely going to be a way more pleasant way of actually doing things. Plus, you know, if you are working with a group of pre-made group of people, you will have this kind of commitment from them, right? So they will always be more reliable of a company than a bunch of randoms that you find in the Dungeon Finder. You'll also probably go into those longer dungeon sprees. You will waste less time in the queues. You will waste less time in the, you know, the groups that just disband halfway through the dungeon and such. So you'll definitely find a way more committed community if you indeed end up doing the dungeons with your guild. So it's just gonna make things easier overall for you. You can also exchange strategies, figure things out, maybe trade your loot as well, because then you'll kind of know what you're doing. You know, you'll know what items you're aiming for. This will definitely just kind of make your life way easier if you're able to find a decent community. As I said, I'm struggling with this because we're trying to go into a pre-made with Sis, who is playing a tank, and there are a lot of guilds who already have their main tanks chosen for Nathria. You know, they have their own synergies and shit, so it's going to be way more harder for us. But generally speaking, I think just finding a guild is a relatively straightforward task. So this being said, guys, this is gonna be it. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, once again, please remember, leave me a like, subscribe, also comment on my advice if you do not agree with it, or if you agree with it. By the way, huge thanks to all of you who did choose to support me. There is a list that you should be able to see right now. Those are all the folks who actually have donated to the channel or who have actually joined it. There's also, guys, there's a join button here available right away. You can just click it for $3 per month. You can support the channel with, you know, your with your money. And also there's an option to click the Twitch. I do stream on Twitch, so if you guys want to drop by for some Shaman or for some Death Knight gameplay, you can definitely do this by just kind of going to the link below and joining my Twitch as well. This being said, thank you people for watching. See you around, see you in the later videos. Let me know if you'd like me to cover some very specific things as well that you might be interested in as far as World of Warcraft goes. Thank you guys.